Here we go. So, welcome everybody. Thank you for making it to the screen for this talk. I'm really excited to share some information with you today about bioresonance and a little bit about some of the bioresonance devices that we have for treatment and diagnostics. So I'm going to be showing you some slides, and there'll be a chance to ask questions if you wish. And as you know, this is the first of 5 talks that I'm giving over the next few weeks. So in some of these slides, I will just mention bits and pieces that I will talk more thoroughly about in some of the other talks. So let's start with a quote that I'm sure you've come across before. It's often used when talking about frequency and frequency medicine. It's a quote by Nikola Tesla, and it simply says, "If you want to discover the secrets of the universe, then think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." And then we have all our answers. So this is what we'll be looking at today: energy, frequency, and vibration, and how this can be harnessed to help us optimize our health. So the first really important fact, which I'm sure you also know, is that everything is made of energy. All of us, all things have their own
later, Horace.
frequency. And that includes our organs and all the parts of our body. So each of our organs, each of our healthy organs, has a unique frequency of electromagnetic oscillations. And when those oscillations are strong and vibrant, we feel strong and healthy and vibrant in ourselves. However, if we are ill, if we are tired, if we are stressed, if we are subjected to toxins, then that frequency of healthy electromagnetic oscillations is interfered with, and they become weakened. So that whole frequency becomes smaller, lower, weaker. And if that goes on for some time, unless it's something short and acute and we bounce back, if that goes on for some time, the effect is that our organs become depleted, our cells become depleted, and we begin to experience signs of, well, symptoms. It might be just feeling tired, or it might be a rash or a headache or a tummy ache, or could be anything. And at this point, many people will go to the doctor, and many people will be given drugs like these in the picture as a way of getting better, as a way of improving their health. But as you probably know, every drug that you take has a toxic residue and has a side effect, and it's very easy to take one drug and then need to take another drug to counteract the side effects, and so on and so forth. So it's not always, of course, there's a place and a time and a place for orthodox medicine, but it's not always the long-term answer if we really want to improve our health. And so one other way of looking at health is to come back to frequency and vibration, because one of the things that's been discovered is that a low pulsating electromagnetic field has the effect of stimulating our cells. And this can lead to all sorts of improvements in health without having any adverse side effects. So unlike the drugs that leave toxic traces in our liver and in our organs, if you can use an electromagnetic field and stimulate our cells in a very particular way, then we can begin to restore health, we can begin to detoxify, we can begin to strengthen our organs and have all sorts of positive knock-on effects from using that electromagnetic field. And this is where bioresonance comes in. Now, many people think bioresonance is quite a new thing, but actually it's been around quite some time. And some of the experiments into what we now call bioresonance began even as far back as in the 1800s. And since that time, there have been many, many scientists and doctors who have played around with using frequency to heal. to correct health in a variety of ways. These are just a couple of people, Reinhard Voll and Helmut Schimmel. There's other people like Royal Raymond Reif. There's a whole list of people who have contributed to the research and the experiments using frequency. So these are just a couple of them. But people often say, well, what does bioresonance mean? What does resonance mean? And what does it involve? So when we look at the word resonance, that literally means the matching of frequencies. Bioresonance is, bio is usually to do with oneself, so the matching of frequencies within oneself or something to that effect. And what that means is that if we have two beings together, they will each have their own frequency. And there's a little law, I don't know what the law's called, which says that whichever being has the stronger frequency will affect the one with the weaker frequency. So to give you an example, you may have done this little experiment at school in a physics lesson. If I had two tuning forks like we have here in the picture, and I were to tap one tuning fork so it began to sound, ding, but I didn't do anything with the second tuning fork. So long as those tuning forks were the same size, the same pitch of tuning forks, as this one began to sound, the vibration would move across to this tuning fork, and this one would begin to join in. It began to match the frequency of the one that's been tapped. And so you'd suddenly find that both tuning forks were sounding, were resonating, were creating a sound, although only one had been tapped. And this is, in a nutshell, the principle of bioresonance, that we can take a stronger frequency to affect a weaker frequency, and the weaker one will come to match the stronger one. Now, a kind of day-to-day example of that, although it's completely different to the tuning fork example, is you've probably had this experience at some point in your life. If you go into a room and someone's in that room and they're either ecstatically happy or passionately in love, or maybe deeply depressed and upset, when you go into that room and start being in the presence of that person, maybe chatting to them, before too long, you start feeling that awful depression or that fantastic excitement and happiness or love. You start picking up on the vibe of that person, and you become affected by it. You begin to take that mood on. Does anyone know what I mean? You experience this? Yeah, good. It's quite common. So this is another example of your frequency matching the frequency of another person whose frequency might be stronger. It doesn't matter if it's a negative strength or a positive strength. Either way, you'll be affected by it. And so is the case with bioresonance. But for this to be the case, we would need some sort of technology to create a frequency that our bodies or our organs could match to. And this is where a company that specializes in just these technologies steps in. This company is called Deta Elis. You can see here at the top, Deta Elis Holding. And for over 30 years, they have specialized in creating medically based, science-based bioresonance, diagnostic and treatment products. And I discovered them a few years ago and was absolutely bowled over by the effect of their devices. My health improved hugely, and people started asking me about it, and that was the beginning of me giving talks like this. So this is a company that has a mission to bring a holistic approach to health to people globally, to treat not just the symptoms of ill health, but to really dive deep to the very root, to the root cause of health issues, and eliminate whatever the root cause is without creating any side effects. That's a very holistic approach, and it works really well. So as I said, their mission is not just to look up here at the symptoms of ill health, but to really get down to the roots, which is a bit different to the way allopathic medicine works a lot of the time. And when you really treat the cause, the root, then you get longer lasting health that stays strong for longer. So I'd like to introduce you to 3 bioresonance devices that this company's developed. They've developed these in order to have a holistic, kind of total approach to health. Now, if you start looking into the question, how can I improve my health? Or how can I work alternatively to improve my health? It's easy when you start looking and asking or looking on Google to find all sorts of health improvement methods that involve detoxing, or that involve strengthening and restoring, or that involve balancing your energy, or one set of means to improve health. But Deta Elis say, well, actually, we need to detox, but we also need to support and restore and strengthen our health. But we also need the energy to do that, and we need to protect our energy from the harm of radiation. So they have a kind of 3-pronged approach, at least this is how I think of it. First of all, the approach of recharging our cells, taking the stress out of our cells, protecting them from radiation, so that we simply have the good foundations, the good energy in our cells sufficiently that we can heal. But we can't heal if we're full of rubbish, if we're full of toxins and microorganisms and chemicals and drug residues and things. So we need to get rid of all the rubbish. But we also need to restore our health, because if you've been living with toxins or pathogens in your body for years or decades, which most of us have, I've not met anyone yet who hasn't come for a bioresonance scan and had 0 toxins or pathogens showing. So anyone who's been living with toxins, even if you're not aware of them, will have some part of their system that has become compromised or weakened or depleted through living with those chemicals, those toxins, etc. And when we remove the nasties, our health doesn't necessarily bounce back to full health. Been living in a compromised state for years or decades, we might need reminding how it feels and what it looks like to have our organs operating without that compromise. So we have a restorative device that will strengthen, restore, recalibrate, rejuvenate our health. And when we approach our health from these 3 different angles, amazing things are possible, fantastic changes are possible. And I'm speaking from my own experience. The only reason I'm giving this talk is because I've experienced so many differences in myself and seen so many people from all over the UK and Europe improving their health, working with bioresonance, and specifically working with these little mini devices. I hold one up. This is how big they are. They're quite small. They're designed to be portable and to fit into your pocket, so that rather than have bioresonance treatment by going and sitting in a clinic wired up to some big clunky device and having to do that several times a week for a couple of hours or so, instead you can just stick one of these in your pocket and get on with your day and be treated at the same time. So 3 little devices, they all work with different sorts of frequencies. So the restorative device here, the RITM device, works with harmonic frequencies, and I'll say a little bit more about this later. The AP, which is the detoxing device, works with stronger frequencies called square frequencies. And the what's called the energy device, that has some foundational programs on it, works with what are called floating frequencies, frequencies based on the solfeggio scale. So again, I'll go into more detail about each of these devices separately. So let's start looking at this energy device. This has 11 programs in it that work at this very foundational level of just building basic health, improving or increasing the energy in our cells to the correct voltage, removing negative mindsets. There's several programs on here to help harmonize the mind, because of course if you're thinking negatively all the time, that will manifest as imbalances in your health. So if you want to improve physical health, it's helpful to harmonize your mind and be thinking more positively, so that you're working with your mind rather than against it, or rather your mind is working with your body rather than against it. We also have programs for protecting against radiation and damage to our DNA. The energy device is called the energy device because originally it only had one program on it, and it was this super important program of energizing our cells, building up the voltage within the mitochondria of our cells. Because if our cells become depleted, if we're chronically tired or stressed or ill, the electrical voltage will gradually drop. And when it gets beyond, below a certain point, we're prone to all sorts of other illnesses. So it's important to build up our cellular reserves of energy. And then we have the energy to heal. We have the energy to sleep, strange as that sounds. We have the energy to change our health. So the first program on this device is simply a program called Energy. And there was a research project done a few years ago in Russia with just this program, the Energy program, whereby the emergency services were given a set of energy devices. And when the emergency services were called out specifically, I believe, to stroke and heart attack patients, one of these energy devices was placed on their chest. And it stayed with the patient whilst they were being taken to hospital until they were seen by the medics there. And what they found was, over, I believe, a period of 6 months, that there was an 80% increase in survival rates when people had the energy device playing the energy program in contact with their body, as opposed to those who didn't, which is quite staggering, really. So a very simple program, but having a huge effect. And this is the program that I first used when I first found out about these devices. I had had COVID a few years back now, and I got through COVID fine. But afterwards, I was just left really sort of tired and heavy. Felt like I had this lead hat kind of stuck on my head, and I just couldn't kind of get my spring and my oomph back. And it was at about that time that I started learning about Deta Elis and the bioresonance products they make. And I had just happened to have ordered these devices, and the energy device arrived for some reason first in the post, just at this time that I was getting over COVID. So I started playing it. I played, I think, 5 or 6 cycles of the energy program each day. And it was really amazing. I could feel myself kind of inflating, I mean, not literally, but I felt a bit like an inflatable toy that was filling up with, it didn't feel like energy. It just felt like, couldn't really put my finger on it at the time, but I just felt more myself. I felt stronger. I felt clearer. I felt better. And each day that I played the energy program, I felt better, more better than the day before. And by the end of the week, I felt completely fine. And the next week, I felt far better than I had felt before I had COVID. And I'm not someone who usually gets ill, or don't get ill very often. And generally, I'm quite healthy. So I felt good before I'd had that bug. But after it, having used the energy device, I felt far stronger and more connected to myself than I ever had before. So that intrigued me to learn more. Many people have since reported similar things, playing the energy program to boost their immunity or to help them recover from an illness or regain energy one way or another. And one of the other really important things that this device does, and one of the things that I love because I'm quite sensitive to radiation, is it creates a shield to all the different forms of radiation that are around today, especially 5G, but also the electrosmog from our household appliances, from our Wi-Fi, the Wi-Fi routers, mobile phones, that sort of thing. So by playing the protection program on the energy device, you can stop yourself from picking up on the effects of radiation. You can also shield yourself from other people's energy. So if, like me, you're a practitioner and you see a lot of people and some of those people might be ill, you can protect yourself from picking up on that energy from other people. I've had several doctors and vets who have sworn by the protection program and say at the end of the day of seeing clients, they just feel still fine and able to go home and cook supper rather than just feeling exhausted and kind of collapsing on the sofa. So we also have on the energy device other programs. As I say, there's a total of 11 that do a lot of really good foundational work. But it's a fantastic tool to have. And do ask me if you'd like to know more about this device. I also give talks just purely about this device and all the different programs. So I can let you know when the next energy talk is coming up, or send you a recording of a previous talk. So the next of the trilogy of devices is called the AP device. And this is the device that does the work of detoxing, eliminating all the nasties out of the body. And it doesn't matter whether that's a heavy metal or a drug residue, a parasite, a worm, a virus, bacteria, mold, fungi, or some other microorganism. This device will get it out of your body for you, which is fantastic. It works with square frequencies, which are quite, you could say, aggressively delivered frequencies, but not aggressive in that they're doing us any harm. So the work of this device is based on the work of Royal Raymond Rife, who many people think of as the founder of bioresonance. He wasn't actually the founder of it. He was one of the people who researched into it. And he discovered that you could isolate the frequency of a microorganism, so of a parasite, something like that. And that by using that very frequency belonging to the microorganism, you could actually destroy it without affecting any of the healthy surrounding tissues. And what he discovered, in essence, works a bit like this. If I had a glass in my hand, here's a glass. If I had a glass that wasn't full of water in my hand, and I were to sing a note that had the same frequency as the frequency of the glass, nothing had happened. But if I invited an opera singer into my room, and the opera singer sang the note of that glass, the glass might do what the picture shows, it might shatter. Now what's happening here is that when I sing the note that has the same frequency as the glass, my voice isn't very strong, so the glass isn't affected. But the opera singer, who's got a really strong, powerful, trained voice, would be sending that frequency out at a more amplified rate, we could say. And the glass goes bang, which is what Rife discovered happens to microorganisms. That if you take the frequency of a microorganism, so here's a little parasite, and here's the frequency of that parasite, so it matches the parasite. If that frequency is played back into the body at a slightly stronger rate, slightly amplified rate, the parasite begins to pick up on the frequency, it begins to vibrate with it, and then it begins at some point to explode and die. Which sounds all very dramatic. It's not so dramatic, but it is super effective. And this being the case, we can rid from the body any microorganism, pathogen, heavy metal, etc., without damaging, harming, or adversely affecting any of the surrounding tissues, which is fantastic news. It means we can easily get all sorts of things out of our body that are doing us harm. So this little AP device has about 2,500 programs in it. This is just an example of a few. You can see there's programs to get rid of cold viruses and flu viruses, to get rid of parasites in different parts of the body, protozoans, mold and fungi, herpes virus. These are, as I say, just a few of many: hepatitis, candida, chlamydia, all sorts of things you wouldn't want to have yourself, and normally you'd have to go and get drugs or some heavy duty intervention to get rid of them. But we can get rid of them easily with this device. I'm going to show you how it works in a second. But one of the reasons it's so vitally important to spring clean your body in this way, to get rid of all the nasties, is because when our liver can't process all the toxins and chemical residues, pesticides, and all the rubbish that we're constantly exposed to in our lives and absorbing or taking in to some degree. Those toxins and pathogens will spill over into what's called the ECM, which means extracellular matrix. Now, the extracellular matrix is basically a fancy word for the space between your cells and your blood vessels. So here's a blood vessel and here's a cell. In your blood vessels, you've got your blood carrying oxygen and nutrients that needs to diffuse into your cells. And your cells, in turn, as they work, will excrete waste products, which are sent back into the blood vessels to be carried out of the body through the blood, through the lymph, etc., through our excretory organs. Now, if this space in between the cells and the blood vessels is congested and filled up with all these toxins that the liver can't process anymore, then it's a bit like Piccadilly Circus in rush hour. No one can move, all the cars are jammed up nose to nose, no one can get through. And in this case, the oxygen and the nutrients can't get through the congestion to our cells. So our cells become starved of the essential nutrients that they need. And the waste products, as they try to diffuse back, can't get back properly to be carried away because of the congestion. So we have cells that are operating below par, and we have this space between cells and blood vessels that's becoming more and more and more congested with toxins. And people will often then take lots of vitamin supplements or supplements of some sort to try to improve their health. But of course, if the vitamins can't get from your blood through to your cells either, they're going to end up as extra congestion and toxins, toxic waste. So it's really, really important to clear out this space called the extracellular matrix so that your cells can effectively breathe and excrete, so that your blood vessels can diffuse nutrients through to your cells, etc., etc. And the great news is all it takes is one of these little devices. So I said earlier that this device works a little bit aggressively. The way it delivers its frequencies, which are called square wave frequencies, is a bit like a hammer banging a nail. It kind of sends them, sends them, sends them, sends them, sends them, until those microorganisms just, as I say, vibrate and explode, become too weak to do anything else. So it's not literally banging into our bodies, into our organs, but the frequency is being delivered in a persistent manner. And this is the effect it has. This is a little video of some paramycium bacteria that you'll see wiggling around on a slide under a microscope. And in real time, you're going to see the frequencies of the AP affecting the bacteria. And you're going to see them one by one all dying off. These are just the bacteria on one slide, if I can get this to play. Okay. Here we go. So this is 80 times larger than normal. And here are all the little wriggly creatures just doing their stuff. But you can see they're beginning to speed up in their movements. And this is because the AP device that you can't see in the movie is at the side somewhere, sending the frequency of these bacteria into them. So watch carefully. Can you see at the top here, this one's beginning to explode, as is this one here, kind of spilling their guts. And this one in the middle is doing something similar. And this one on the right, you see one by one they're emptying themselves out and dying. And there's another one at the top. In a minute, they all will have met their end. There we go. So the slide's just being moved around to see if there's any more sign of life there. And somewhere here, there's one big, here we go, one big juicy one. It's just beginning to be affected by the frequency. And this is going to do a spectacular emptying itself out. So all of this is going on in the tissues, or would be in the tissues of a person, but all the surrounding tissue, the healthy tissue, isn't affected at all. And the device will then break down the waste products and ensure that everything's flushed out through the lymphatic drainage pathways. Good. So let's just have a look at some of the research and trials, at least, that have been done around the effects of these devices, specifically the AP detox device. So I believe now around 173 three-stage clinical trials have been done with these devices. A lot of the research was done in Russia many years ago, and the results of those trials showed things like this, that parasites were reported as being eradicated with 96% success rate. So that's pretty high, isn't it? Helicobacter pylori, 92% eradication rate. Hepatitis of all types, 90%. And I haven't obviously put all the research into this talk, but I can send you, if you're interested in this thing, I can send you data with lots of the trials that have been done. A lot of it is on PubMed, so you can look it up. I'd like to show you a few slides that were part of some of the research that's been done. So here's a couple of slides looking at Staphylococcus. On the left here, we can see a large number of cells, Staphylococcus cells. And then after using the device, and normally we would use the device every day for, say, 3 months to completely get rid of a microorganism. These are slides that were taken after two uses of a Staphylococcus elimination program. So you can see there's a huge difference. The cells are much lower, and if that person were to carry on using the device, they would all disappear. Here we have listeria, again, very striking difference, bright luminous pink over here, many cells. And then again, after just two, they call it activations, 2 usages of a listeria program, you can see far fewer listeria cells than before. So quite a big difference there. Here we have E. coli. Again, big difference. The cells here are very active and alive. Here they've been completely destroyed. Just seeing the remnants after, again, 2 usages of the E. coli program. And we have a lot of success with people coming with urinary tract infections and cystitis, that sort of thing, which is caused by E. coli. So by playing the E. coli program, we can eradicate the symptoms and the cause of the symptoms quite easily with the devices, which is a wonderful thing to be able to do. Now, I mentioned earlier that if you are living with some infection, some bacteria, mold, fungi, parasites, etc., your body will compromise itself in order to keep going. And that means that some of your organs or body systems will become a little bit depleted or a little bit out of whack. And so we have this third device, the RITM device, that does the job of strengthening your body, of reminding your body how to function optimally. And it does this using a gentle form of frequency, which acts a little bit like the action of a swing. I'll say more about this in a minute, to create healing, strengthening, recalibration of our organs. So effectively what it's doing is it's saying to the person here whose organs are a little bit weak or below par, it's saying, here, remember your healthy frequencies. So let's say the heart is a little bit depleted, it will play the frequency of the heart. And as the heart, in quotes, hears or receives its own healthy frequency, it will remember what that frequency is. It will begin to join in. It will begin to get the hang of that, and it will gradually return to its original, stronger, healthier state. So I mentioned it works a bit like the action of the swing. It works with harmonic frequencies. And whereas the AP device delivers its frequencies, as I said, a bit like a hammer, more aggressively, this is a bit like the action of pushing one of these children on a swing. It just gives a little nudge. It delivers the frequency into the organs, and then it pauses, and then it delivers it again, and then it pauses. And you've probably pushed someone on a swing at some point in your life, and you'll know that in the beginning you have to push them a few times, but gradually they build up momentum, and gradually you can give a gentler push or a smaller push, and at some point the person, like these children, realize that they can lean back and they can lift their feet, and they can actually maintain that momentum themselves without the need for any push. And this is a bit like what the RITM device does. It reminds you how to be swung, as it were, and your organs gradually pick up, and at some point they've returned to their healthy frequency and they can maintain that themselves. So here's the heart. The heart has a frequency of 7.83 hertz. So if somebody did have something going on with their heart, we could play the frequency of 7.83 and their heart would receive that, and it would begin to remember its own frequency and be able to maintain that. So this is a little snapshot of the 3 bioresonance devices that I've been working with. And of course, however much I say about them, people will always say, well, do they work? How do I know that they work? Do they always work? So I mentioned that there's been around, probably more now, 173 3-stage clinical trials that all had very positive results. The company's been doing research for way over 20 years, closer to 30 years now. They have patents for these devices in 73 countries. They have certifications and awards. They have the KITE mark, and they have all the certificates needed to show that they are science-based, that they're proven to work. And originally, when the company developed these, they all had the stamp from the Russian government of being medical devices. As the 30 or so years have gone by and the devices have been improved and upgraded and more frequencies have been added, they had to apply for the award again, but they couldn't get the award without redoing all of those clinical trials, which would have taken years and cost thousands of pounds. So they now have the stamp as being wellness devices, but effectively they're the same devices, they're just better. There's more state-of-the-art technology now. So they're rooted in science, and the programs are made by doctors and used by many doctors around the world. So the other answer to do these devices work is to show you some before and after pictures. I've shown you a few pictures of the effects on microorganisms, but here's some pictures of people, real people who've been using these devices. This is a little boy who had terrible eczema from 3 months old. Now, certainly in this country, I've had friends who have had children very, very young with very bad eczema, and they've gone to the GP, and the GP's given them barrier creams and steroids and things like that. But in the case of this little boy, he came for a bioresonance scan, and it was discovered that the cause of the eczema was a combination of Giardia, Staphylococcus, and Streptococcus. So this child worked with the AP eliminating device that I mentioned over the course of a year, and you can see how his skin improved from being really rough and irritated to gradually becoming completely clear. So this is a case of eczema. This is a case of herpes. So you can see, again, skin herpes here, and here it's all beautifully cleared up from using the AP device. many people come with prostatitis, many men come with prostatitis, and this seems to respond really well to bioresonance. So here's a couple of, I don't think these are ultrasound or X-rays. It's difficult to know exactly what we're looking at, not being medically trained, but if you look at the volume here, you can see in this picture, the prostate volume is decreased by about a third. And probably this was interim photos being taken rather than the end result. Certainly, as I said, we have a lot of people coming with prostate issues who are super positive about how bioresonance has helped them, and often go and tell their men friends who then come along as well. This is staphylococcus. You can see before and after, skin's healed. I'm showing you a lot of skin pictures because it's obviously quite difficult to show you pictures from inside the body. It's easy to show you skin pictures. This was a child who, for whatever reason, had a kind of immune system crash. Immune system stopped working properly, and they came out in all sorts of blisters and infections. And this was an infection to the feet. But you can see here it was cleared up as the root cause of what had taken place was addressed. Here's psoriasis on the hand. And this is a picture that a German colleague of mine gave me from one of her clients who had an inoperable brain tumour, which we can see here. And after a year and a half of working with the devices, you can see it's disappeared. And she said that the medics in the hospital were scratching their heads saying, this isn't possible, you know, where's it gone? That sort of reaction. So quite amazing. Now, one of the questions when working with these bioresonance devices is, how do I know which programs to use? Because these devices, apart from the energy device, the other two have about 2,500 programs. So how do I know which to use? So in answer to that, there's two main systems of using the devices. One is self-treatment. And if you're going to self-treat, it's always really good to begin with this protocol that the company have made for anyone wishing to use the devices. It's a general program or protocol that will take 4 months using the devices, and it will work to detox the general things that need detoxing, so worms and parasites and bacteria and fungi, those sorts of microorganisms. It will work to balance and strengthen the major body systems, so the hormonal system, the digestive system, etc., etc. And it will work to energize and de-stress the body. So this is a fantastic starting point for anyone wanting to work with these devices. And then from there on, there are 16 here, but there's actually, I think, 22 themed protocols that have been made by the company that again are 4-month schedules to address different issues to do with, say, the heart and circulation, to do with joints and movement, to do with skin, to do with the immune system. So if you have a health issue, you could look at one of these themed programs and you could work through a 4-month protocol, a bit like this one, but in relation to your heart, your circulation, your digestion, men's reproductive health, female reproductive health, etc., depending on what you needed. So this is one way of working with the devices. There's also lots of programs that don't need much explanation, like anti-cold or anti-flu or sore throat programs or headache or migraine programs that you can use for general day-to-day ups and downs and acute conditions. In addition to this, you could come and have a scan. You could come and have a medically diagnostic bioresonance scan with Dr. Yanis, who's one of the world-leading experts in bioresonance, and he spends his time traveling the world, giving trainings, lectures, and giving bioresonance scans. And he has the combined knowledge of being a mainstream doctor, a naturopath, a homeopath, and, as I say, one of the leading experts on electromagnetic frequency medicine. So he comes over every 3 months to Forest Row, where I live, And he sees people giving scans, and the scans that he does on this scanner reveal what the root cause of your health issues are. So it will show you which microorganisms, which toxins, which chemicals, which form of radiation, etc., might be affecting your health. It will show you any pathogenic changes. It will tell you if you have intolerances or imbalances in many different areas of your health and in different parts of your body. So it's a fantastic diagnostic tool. And if you come for a scan, then and the scan takes place via a probe on your finger, he can then tailor-make you programs and load them onto these mini bioresonance devices. So you can have tailor-made programs and then come and have scans every few months over the course of a year or so, depending on your health issue. And he will always tailor-make the programs for you. So you've got self-treatment or you've got tailor-made programs. And in order to know how to give a scan, if this is something that interests you, Dr. Yanis offers bioresonance trainings, and the next one we're hoping will be in January. This will enable you to become a bioresonance practitioner, to know how to give a diagnostic scan and to use the different treatment devices, including these portable devices, to work with clients with. We also have, if you're interested in the diagnostic side of things, just very briefly, Deta Elis have also made a different sort of scanner for people who maybe don't want such in-depth information, but they want a general kind of quick check of their client's health. We have a different scanner, which is quite fun to work with. It's a heart rate variability scanner, and it gives you readings about your health with pictures like this. We have a key to refer to, and we have the client's readings here. So this is about the electrical activity of the brain. We get readings for the digestive organs, for the other organs of the body, for spinal function, for immune function, stress levels, energy levels, lots of different physiological levels. And then for energy levels like chakras and auras and meridians and yin-yang balance. So it's quite a fun way of working to have a kind of Eastern and Western set of readings. And again, this is something I can tell you more about. I often give talks about this little scanner, so do contact me if you'd like to know more about this. These are just some of the readings that you can get with the pulse scanner. So before I stop talking about bioresonance and the treatments that you can have, there's another device, a little bit different to these portable devices, but equally invaluable, which is a device called the BRT device. And it's worth a mention because it's a really fantastic piece of kit. And this works by a little box of tricks fit into my hand. It's about the size of my hand, and involves you sitting. So this isn't portable. It is portable, but you can't use it on the move. You have to sit or lie to use it for 20 minutes. And this involves holding on to these two metal cylinders and putting your feet on two metal foot plates whilst this box of tricks does its magic. And what this does really cleverly is it reads the frequencies of your body, and it separates the healthy frequencies that belong to your body from the pathogenic frequencies that come from microorganisms, toxins, chemicals, parasites, etc. It separates them out, and it takes the good ones and it boosts them and feeds them back in, and then it takes all the pathogenic frequencies and it inverts them, it turns them upside down, which has the effect of cancelling them out, deactivating them, so they're powerless to continue doing what they were doing. So the effect of this over the course of 20 minutes is that it reduces inflammation. Anywhere where there are pathogens kind of busy working away, creating some form often of inflammation in the body, will begin to reduce. So if people have an acute inflammation, or if they have a chronic inflammatory condition, this can be a really useful bioresonance device to work with. It also balances out the energy in the body. So if we've got some parts of the body that have high energy, maybe they're inflamed, for instance, and some that are weakened, it will balance out the energy and distribute it evenly towards around different parts of the body. It's a really fantastic little tool to use if you have an acute condition. So if you start getting a cold or a cough or a flu or something like that, in the same way, in homeopathy, you might jump on an arnica pill, or not jump on it. Sorry, not arnica, aconite. I always used to say aconite for colds and things. With this, you can just do a treatment with the BRT, and it will deactivate and cancel out whatever that cold virus was that was beginning to have an effect. And with a bit of luck, it would halt it in its tracks. If you only use the BRT when it had already set hold, then it's likely to reduce the symptoms and speed the duration of the bug, so that you recover more quickly. This also hugely de-stresses the body. So if you have a stressful job, or you easily get stressed or wound up, this will calm your system, calm your nervous system, and leave you feeling at peace with the world. So again, if you want to know more about the BRT, talk to me, and I can tell you more or send you a talk about it. For me, it's an amazing bioresonance device, working with something called endogenous bioresonance frequency, whereas these little devices work with exogenous. That just means that these devices send a frequency from outside the body into the body, whereas the BRT device uses the frequencies that are already in your body and either boosts them or cancels them out. So there's many, many advantages to having these devices. For me, having the 3 devices here is a bit like having a really good first aid kit. You can tackle almost any health issue with these devices, and anyone can use them. It doesn't matter how old or how young you are. The only things to be aware of are if you had a pacemaker or an organ transplant, you couldn't work with bioresonance, or in the first trimester of pregnancy, it's good to avoid them as well. So just before we end, as you know, I'm going to give a few other talks over the next couple of weeks about some of the other supporting products that Deta Elis have made, because they aim to make a kind of whole package of health supporting products. The core is working with the frequency devices, the bioresonance devices, but not everybody is able to afford those or to work with those. And if they are, they might need some extra support as well, nutritionally, or support with drinking more water, which is really important when you work with bioresonance. So I'm just going to mention a couple of the other products or devices that can be really useful either on their own or in conjunction with bioresonance. And the first is what's called the Domatrix pendants. These are little pendants that look like this, about the size of a 50p piece, that you can hang around your neck or put somewhere against your body, that have the ability to support and to correct different health issues. They do contain frequencies from the RITM and the AP device, and they also contain other ingredients like homeopathic remedies and nosodes and herbal preparations that together with the frequency create this really strong energy field to correct and support 14 different areas of the body. So supporting heart and circulation, or supporting immunity, or supporting kidneys and urinary systems, etc., etc. Another really invaluable product is what's called the Diaqua, which is a bottle. And this is what I'll be talking about tomorrow. It's a bottle that makes hydrogen water and ozone water, and also enables you to inhale or nebulize hydrogen. Absolutely fantastic either standalone product or additional product to help you detox, to help your cells energize, to help you sleep better, to help your immune system. Lots and lots of fantastic benefits to drinking hydrogen water or using ozone water for cleaning your house or for cleaning rooms. So again, come to my next talk or ask me more about this fantastic piece of kit. We also have, there's 4 here, but there's actually 6 delixiers, which are organically based herbal fruity tonics that are a bit like multivitamins. They're nutritional tonics that will have different effects. So one of them works as a kind of multivitamin and mineral, but they're highly, highly absorbable and easy to take, and they taste absolutely delicious. We have one for helping detox processes, one for helping collagen, kind of an anti-aging formula, one for helping pH balance, reducing inflammation. We have one to help with fat metabolism, helping weight loss. So again, I'll be talking about this soon. And then we have the other 2 nutritional products. We have a pre and probiotic and also a krill oil, so omega-3 supplement. And these together, especially together with the bioresonance devices, create a fantastic possibility for enhancing and optimizing your health in a long-lasting way. So let me stop sharing. Thank you so much for listening. Let me just stop this.